If a woman can say these things to you and you still stay, then the problem isn't her. It's you. You're not hurting because you were insulted. You're hurting because you got used to being insulted and started calling it love. And that's pathetic. Men don't lose their worth because they got left. They lose it when they keep clinging to someone who no longer respects them. In this video, I'm going to expose 5 seemingly harmless phrases that are quietly crushing your self-respect day by day. And if you're still clear-headed enough to recognize that, you'll know exactly what to do. Don't half-watch this, watch it to the end. Then take a hard look at yourself. If you feel the positive energy, don't forget, like this video and share a meaningful comment. People think relationships end because of some huge shock, betrayal, cheating, a screaming match. But the brutal truth is, most relationships don't die from a fatal blow. They decay silently, poisoned by small, harmless words. A woman doesn't need to yell, slap you, or say she despises you. All she has to do is chip away at you every day, with a passive-aggressive jab, a contemptuous glare, or a sweetly wrapped insult dripping in venom. You're too sensitive. That's her way of dismissing your feelings. I was just joking. That's her excuse to keep disrespecting you without accountability. I don't think you get it. That's a jab at your intelligence, implying you're not on her level. Hear that long enough, and you'll start believing the problem is you. That you're overreacting. That staying silent keeps the peace. And that's when you start retreating from your own identity. Not because you've matured, but because you're gutting your own self-worth just to please someone who doesn't deserve it. Here's what's terrifying. You don't even realize it's happening. You defend her. You say she's just stressed, she didn't mean it, she's just playing. But it's swallowing those subtle insults that destroys your dignity faster than any punch ever could. And don't expect her to stop. If you don't stand up, if you don't speak out, if you don't break that toxic cycle, then you're silently agreeing to it. You're teaching her. You can treat me like this, and I won't do a damn thing. This isn't gentle advice. This is a warning. Each of those small phrases is a sting, a slow rot eating away at you every single day. And if you don't act, one day you'll wake up, look in the mirror, and not even recognize the man staring back. The only way out? Wake the hell up. Don't just listen. Feel through your self-respect. Any phrase that makes you feel belittled is never just a joke. And when it keeps happening, it's not an accident. It's who she really is. No need to argue. No need to explain. Just remember, respect is never something you have to beg for. If she can't offer it from the very first words, don't wait around for the last ones to leave. Because the moment you let those little comments destroy you, you're complicit in your own collapse. In silence. One of the most common and dangerous delusions modern men feed themselves is this. The nicer I am, the more I accommodate, the more I do everything to make her happy, the more she'll love me. The truth is the opposite. When you lack boundaries, you're not loved, you're tolerated, until she finds someone who actually makes her feel desire. Does that sound harsh? Good, because you need to hear it. Women don't resent you because you're weak. They resent you because you pretend to be strong, while being a powerless mess inside. They don't leave you because you give too much. They leave because you give without self-respect. You sacrifice your time, your energy, your dreams. You compromise everything just to keep her around. And then you're surprised when she keeps drifting away? This isn't some psychological mystery. It's nature. No one respects a man who won't protect himself. A man without boundaries will be tested, pushed, and challenged. Not because she's evil, but because she needs to know if you've got the spine to hold your ground under pressure. If you can't say no, if you can't confront, if you can't walk away when disrespected, then in her eyes, you're not a man to admire. You're just a convenient plan B, there when she needs you, quiet when she's wrong, gone when she's bored. You think you love her, but the truth is you're just scared of losing her. And love based on fear is not love. It's dependence. And dependence is the fastest way to kill attraction in any relationship. Women don't want a man who chases them. They want a man who leads, who knows who he is, knows what he wants, and refuses to tolerate disrespect from anyone, including the woman he loves. You don't need to be controlling, cold, or aggressive, but you absolutely need a backbone. Boundaries aren't about controlling others, they're about defining yourself. If you don't set your own boundaries, others will define you however they please, and you'll end up hating the man you see in the mirror. Don't sacrifice your self-worth just to hold on to someone you can't keep with the truth. If she loves you, she'll respect your limits. And if she disappears, the moment you finally stand up and set a standard, congratulations. You just dodged a toxic relationship before it crushed you. Boundaries don't cost you love. They're the only thing that lets you keep it, as a man who deserves to be loved. One of the dumbest mistakes men make is believing that if they're kind enough, thoughtful enough, and understanding enough, women will respect them. Let me be blunt. Respect isn't a prize handed out for being accommodating. It's something you demand from the world by living true to your values, or you walk the hell away the moment those values are disrespected. You can't negotiate for respect. You can't explain your worth to someone who refuses to see it. You can't beg a woman to speak to you more gently if you won't even end the conversation when she crosses the line. The second you ask for respect, you've already lost. Because real respect doesn't come from your words, it comes from your actions. And a man who won't confront, won't say no, won't walk away, will never earn it. Women aren't attracted to how easy you are. They're attracted to how solid you are. They gravitate toward men who know who they are, who live by principles, who don't get shaken by someone else's emotional chaos. A man who keeps his composure and anger but still knows how to say that's enough when a line is crossed. That man doesn't need to raise his voice, doesn't need to act tough, doesn't need to fake being alpha. He just stands his ground, looks her in the eye, and walks when respect is no longer on the table. If you're afraid of conflict, afraid of upsetting her, afraid to make things tense because you think it might cost you her affection, then you're not a partner. You're a servant. You've traded your place in the relationship to be kept around like a convenient accessory. And a man like that isn't loved, isn't desired, isn't respected. He's used until something more stimulating comes along and replaces him. Respect doesn't come from what you do for her. It comes from what you won't accept from her. You don't tolerate mockery, manipulation, or being treated like trash with a smile on your face. The softer your boundaries, the harder she'll test you. She wants to know, is this man strong enough to protect both of us, or is he just a cotton ball floating through feelings? And if you can't show moral strength, integrity, and non-negotiable standards, you're not someone worth holding on to. Next time you feel disrespected, don't sit there rationalizing it. Stand up and walk away. No yelling, no drama. Just let her see. Respect isn't something you bargain for. Stop wasting another day living in weakness and chaos. Subscribe to Stoic Success now to build an unbreakable mindset, master your emotions, and face life like a warrior. There's a type of man that's become far too common in the modern world. He enters a relationship full of confidence, dreams, and personality. And little by little, he gives it all up. He folds himself down to fit her expectations. He sacrifices his time, his passions, his friends, even his self-respect, and calls it love. But the truth is, that's not love, that's surrender. You weren't born to be a customizable version of some woman's preferences. You don't exist to be pleasing to her eye. And if you believe that giving up who you are is the price you have to pay to keep her, then there's nothing left to keep. Because the only thing that ever made you valuable in anyone's eyes was that you were fully yourself. With a spine, with strength, with a will. There is nothing more pitiful than a man trying to hold on to a woman by killing off who he really is. He stops chasing his goals, stops engaging with what lights him up, all to earn the reluctant presence of someone who no longer values him. And when she leaves, because she will, he doesn't just lose her, he loses himself. Real love never asks you to abandon your identity. It doesn't require you to sacrifice your honor, your dignity, or the principles you believe in. It doesn't ask you to become a shadow. In fact, real love demands two solid individuals, independent enough to stand alone, strong enough to lean on each other when needed. If you find yourself gritting your teeth, silencing your truth, letting go of what matters just to keep the peace, you're not in love. You're trapped in a form of emotional manipulation labeled as romance. Ask yourself this: when was the last time you lived true to yourself? When was the last time you said what you really thought without fearing how she'd react? If you can't remember, then you've already drifted too far. You might think you're keeping the relationship alive by being softer, more agreeable, more understanding. But the reality is, you're being trained into someone she doesn't respect. And when she no longer sees the man she once admired, she'll go looking for that admiration somewhere else. Don't confuse compromise with surrender. A man with backbone knows when to bend and exactly when to stand up, because he still has self-respect. And remember this: if love requires you to lose yourself, it's a scam. And a clear-minded man doesn't sign the contract. It doesn't start with yelling. It doesn't come from a punch or a screaming match. What breaks you comes from the smallest things: a look of contempt, a sarcastic remark, a sigh dripping with disdain that you choose to ignore just to keep the peace. Disrespect in a relationship isn't always loud or violent. It's often quiet, smooth, and incredibly calculated. It wears a disguise. "I was just joking. Why are you being so serious? I'm just messing around." But you feel it. Every cell in your body knows it's not a joke. The real question is, do you have the guts to face it? Men don't walk away from a relationship after the first slap. They walk away after 100 little slaps they tolerated. And eventually, the exhaustion breaks them. They either become a lifeless shell trapped in that same relationship, or they explode one night out of nowhere. But it all started from one moment: the first time you let her cross the line without consequences. Mockery, dismissiveness, devaluing, comparing, ignoring. These things, if they happen once, might be accidental, but when they happen again and again, they form a pattern. And that pattern exists only because you stayed silent. When you don't respond, you're not being mature like you think. You're training her that this behavior is acceptable. You're teaching her that you're the kind of man who can be pushed, overlooked, placed beneath her emotions and convenience. And while you think you're keeping peace, you're actually surrendering. Here's what you need to understand: all disrespect escalates. Today it's a jab, tomorrow it's an insult. And one day you'll hear her say, "I don't even know why I'm still with you." And when that moment comes, don't act surprised, because you authorized it. Bit by bit, day after day. Don't let anyone, not even the woman you love, think you're the kind of man who can be walked on and still smile. A contemptuous comment, no matter how small, needs to be called out. And if it repeats, it needs to be met with action. You don't need to yell, you don't need to rage, but you damn sure need to make a decision. Watch how she talks about you when she's upset. Does she speak like someone who respects her partner, or like someone criticizing a discounted item she regrets buying? If it's the second, don't wait until you're completely drained. Walk away while you still have the strength to walk tall. Not every betrayal shows up in the dark. Sometimes it comes dressed as a whisper, soft, sweet, innocent, or just emotional. But underneath the surface, these phrases are direct hits to your self-worth. And if you're not sharp enough, you'll fall right into the trap without even realizing you're being manipulated. First phrase: "If you loved me, you would." It sounds romantic. You might even feel proud at first, flattered that she loves you enough to ask for proof. But don't be fooled. This isn't love. This is emotional blackmail. You'd stop seeing that female friend. You'd quit that job to spend more time with me. You'd move away from your city. No matter what comes after, the damage is already done in the first half, because it forces you to prove your love by giving up pieces of who you are. This is a manipulation tactic used not because she's cruel, but because she knows it works, especially on men who lack boundaries. And if you fall into this trap once, there will be a second time, then a third, until you're no longer yourself. Second phrase: "I just want to have fun." This is the clearest sign of a woman who has zero intention of commitment and zero responsibility for anyone's emotions, including yours. She doesn't think past next week. She doesn't care about building a future together. She doesn't care if you're hurting or happy, as long as she's comfortable, entertained, and getting new experiences. And when life gets hard, sickness, job loss, failure, pressure, she's the first to vanish because she just wants to have fun. Pain, patience, loyalty, not in the deal. Third phrase, you can't do anything right, or I don't even know why I'm still with you. Sound familiar? Maybe you brushed it off with a nervous laugh. Maybe you even blamed yourself afterward. But hear this clearly. This isn't teasing. This is calculated contempt. When a woman says things like that, she's not just criticizing what you did wrong. She's attacking your core worth. She wants you to feel small, inferior, useless, because that makes you easier to control. And if you stay silent, if you start trying harder just to make her happy, you've just confirmed her message was true. When a man finds himself in a toxic relationship, the first thing he usually does is try to explain. He thinks that if he's clear enough, logical enough, kind enough, she'll understand. She'll change. She'll go back to being the woman he once loved. But here's the truth. You can't talk someone into respecting you. And if you have to explain your worth, you've already lost it a long time ago. Your value isn't something to be negotiated. It doesn't belong on the bargaining table. It's something you declare through how you live and protect through how you act. If a woman speaks to you with disrespect, if she crosses your boundaries, if you feel yourself being diminished, manipulated, or dismissed, you don't need to argue. You need to stand up. Quietly, decisively. No drama. No teaching her a lesson. Just walk and let that action say everything. I am not a man you can treat this way. A lot of men are afraid of loss. They fear the emptiness, the loneliness, the idea of starting over. So they endure. They tell themselves, maybe she's just going through a tough phase. Maybe it's my fault. I just need to be more patient. But while you're making excuses, she's losing respect for you, day by day. Women don't leave because you made a mistake. They leave because you have no backbone, no principles, no clear boundaries. The more you tolerate, the more she tests. And every time you let it slide, you sink deeper into the swamp of her contempt. You're teaching her that you're a man who can be manipulated, bargained with, reshaped to fit her moods. And women don't desire that kind of man. They just use him until someone better shows up. The solution isn't yelling, overreacting, or faking confidence to cover your wounds. The solution is to live with standards and walk the moment those standards are violated. No apologies, no explanations, no long speeches. A man who knows his worth doesn't beg for respect. He acts to reclaim it. If she crosses the line, leave. Not because you don't love her, but because you love yourself enough not to stay where you're being humiliated. Many men stay in toxic relationships not because of love, but because of fear. They fear losing what's familiar, fear facing the emptiness, fear feeling abandoned or being seen as a failure. They believe that if they walk away, they'll be lonely, they'll regret it, they'll never have another shot at love. But what they don't realize is this: the very act of walking away for the sake of your dignity is the first thing that makes you worthy of love again. Not from her, from other women, from society, and most importantly, from yourself. When you walk away from a relationship where there's no respect, you don't lose love. You reclaim your standards. You reset the baseline that tells the world, this is how I allow myself to be treated. And women, real women, women with value, with depth, with self-respect, are exactly the kind who are drawn to men who carry such standards. Not because you're harsh, but because you have a backbone. Not because you're cold, but because you refuse to compromise with disrespect. The weak man thinks, if I keep giving in, she'll care. The strong man knows, if I bow too low, she'll look down on me. And that's the paradox not every man has the courage to face. You don't keep someone by pleasing them. You keep the right person by staying true to yourself. When you leave the wrong relationship, you don't just walk away from hurt. You walk away from an old version of yourself, the version you've grown tired of pretending to be. You don't walk away empty-handed. You walk away with your spine straight, your eyes clear, and your self-respect intact. There is nothing more attractive to a woman than a man who can say, "I love you, but not enough to lose myself." And you don't have to say it out loud. It's in your eyes, in your silence, in the way you cross the threshold without looking back. You think walking away means you failed? No, walking away means you've made a declaration. I choose me. Final truth, if she doesn't respect you, she cannot love you. Love without respect is just emotional manipulation. A man who knows his worth will never stay where he's not valued. Men are not destroyed by women. They destroy themselves by allowing others to cross the line without consequence. The moment you accept disrespect, even once, you've signed the death sentence on your own dignity. Love can't save a man who doesn't respect himself. And no woman can love deeply a man she no longer looks up to. You can keep blaming, tolerating, and waiting for someone else to change. Or you can become the kind of man even you have to respect. That doesn't come from words. It comes from decisions, from boundaries, from action. Remember this, you're not being abandoned when you walk away from a bad relationship. You're clearing space for one that's actually worthy, starting with the one you have with yourself. Choose respect, even if you have to walk alone. Because if you still have you, you have everything. But if you lose you, you've lost it all. Thank you for being here. If you found this video helpful, subscribe, turn on notifications, and like this video. Don't forget to leave a comment so we can spread positivity together.